be able to go ahead and start, I think. Tim, is there anybody in the room? Anyone from the public?
Did you hear from the other Melissa?
Both Melissas are here. I have Melissa Sharples and yeah, everybody's here. Okay. Megan's here. We're all accounted for.
All right.
Okay. Well, I can't tell if there's anyone there, so I'm just gonna trust that there isn't anyone there. But so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to the May 13th, 2021 meeting of the Newmarket Conservation Commission. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Sue, do you want to call the roll?
Patrick Reynolds.
Present.
Ellen Snyder.
Here.
Chris Blackstone.
Here.
Melissa Brogel.
Here.
David Bell.
Here.
Melissa Sharples.
Here.
Megan Braybeck.
Present.
And of course, Jenny's here.
Okay.
Jeff.
Well,
present and alone.
Present and alone in the room.
That's right. We don't say that as we don't tend to say that, but you're right to say that. We should probably. So tonight we do have a guest speaker, and our guest speaker tonight is Jenny Humphreys, who is with Mr. Fox Composting. She's been with them for over 2 years, and she is the operations manager. So that means she's managing all the behind-the-scenes aspects of the composting company. And she did want to add that Mr. Fox has been around over 10 years, and they service the New Hampshire seacoast and parts of southern Maine. They offer curbside residential service and commercial service for businesses. And so she's here to talk to us about composting tonight and give us more information. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I don't get to do many events anymore because of COVID, obviously. So this is kind of fun. So as Patrick said, I've been with Mr. Fox for a little over 2 years, and I do all of the kind of behind the scenes work. Do any of you compost with Mr. Fox right now? You can raise your hand, I guess. No? No? God. Oh, all right. One.
David.
I guess a little bit about the programs itself. So we do offer a residential curbside program, which basically constitutes where a customer will sign up and they weekly or bi-weekly service depending on what location they're in, and then we give them a compost bin with a compostable liner. And once you get that, you can start putting all of your organic waste in that bin. And then on a designated day, we will drive by and we'll pick up the bin curbside, dump the contents into our trucks, and then they leave you a fresh compostable liner to start again for the next week or 2 weeks of your composting. And then our trucks haul all of that organic waste back to our facility. Now, our facility is actually based in York, Maine, and we operate on a windrow system. So what that actually allows us to do is we don't have to worry about like worms or anything like that. So we're able to accept a lot of organic waste, and we're considered an industrial facility, which is really cool because we are able to take all of the compostable packaging that a lot more businesses, if you've noticed, are starting to use. So these containers, like they're to-go containers or the PLA plastic cups, things like that, we can actually accept, and it will break down in our process. Our windrows are very big, so they generate a lot of heat, and we're regulated by. So we have to do things like every single week we take temperatures of our piles in 3 different areas and different depths. And then we're constantly turning them as well to make sure that all of the organic waste that's going into the piles are getting that chance to go into kind of like the core of each pile and get the max amount of heat to break down. And the whole process to get like a usable pile of compost that you could then use in a garden, it can be as quick as 3 months. It probably would still be a little hot at that point, but at that point you could get the compost and then start putting it to use, which is pretty cool. And we, again, since we're an industrial sized facility, we are actually able to, we do this year round. So there's no closing of the facility. We're collecting all the time, and the piles, even in the dead of winter, they're just so big that they're still generating the type of heat that we need to have all the contents break down into it. Now, you guys in, I think most of you are, I'm assuming, are in Newmarket. Newmarket, we service, with our curbside program. But what's really cool is you're one of the towns that also the Newmarket transfer station has Mr. Fox bins located at it, and have your own bucket of organic waste, and you can bring it to your town transfer station, dump it into the Mr. Fox bin, and then we come around with our larger truck and we tip that once a week. And that is through the town, so that doesn't cost you anything if you have like a transfer station sticker. But yeah, that's kind of like a little snapshot of like how the whole process works. We're growing. Actually, COVID was kind of good for us in a way because everybody was home and doing a lot more cooking. So composting kind of ramped up for us in terms of the residential side. We had a massive amount of people sign up, and a lot of towns are also reviewing ways to cut down on their landfill, especially since the recycling kind of issue is a lot more apparent. They're trying to find ways they can really sort things. So we've had 4 different transfer stations sign up during this time period too, which is really great because that gives a lot more people opportunity if they're not really sure what composting is, or if they want to do the curbside program. This gives them an opportunity to try that out through their town level. Yeah. Does anybody have questions for me?
Could clarify a little bit. I see on Instagram you guys do a great job of reminding us periodically what is allowed to be in that, or what are you encouraging us to put in the compost for you or for compost purposes. Also, I was interested, one of your posts really reminded us that something might say biodegradable, but that doesn't mean that it's ever going to biodegrade if it goes in the regular garbage pickup. So can you give us a little overview about that, Jenny, about those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for recognizing the Instagram. I do all of that, so that makes me really happy. My hard work
it's done really well. I love it.
Oh, good. I work hard at it. So, but yeah, so it's a good point. So the big thing, I think that it's a big misconception, and I was guilty of it too before I really kind of got into the nitty gritty of this industry. A lot of people think like if I just throw my apple core or this product says compostable, if it goes into the landfill bin, since if it's biodegradable, it's organic, it's going to break down anyway. And the truth is that that's not the case. Landfills are, as we know, they're really big. The trash just compacts everything, so it just gets smothered, and nothing is actually getting air to help break down those materials. So they're just getting stuck in the landfill. And there's studies every once in a while, and they do actually core samples of these larger landfills, and they will do core samples where they find, whole like apple pits, apple cores, and avocado pits that have been there for like 10 plus years, and they just haven't broken down because they're just being smothered in these landfills. So it's important to know that the composting that we're doing is very different. In a landfill, it's getting trapped, it's trapping those dangerous gases, it's releasing the methane. When composting, the way we're doing it, so when we get that organic waste, we combine it, we have like a recipe basically, and we're combining it with different amendments, and then we're doing the turning of the piles every so many weeks. There's a whole schedule to it. So every pile is getting turned so many weeks. And this turning and this adding of the amendments is what's really actually kind of kicking off the scientific process to start breaking down all that material. So that's why, when people say like, oh, it's by, that's great, but if it's not going to a composting facility, it's just going to end up in a landfill. Which is one of the things that we really do try to kind of drive home, especially for some of these restaurants that they're doing their best while they're buying these compostable products like to-go containers and cups that are compostable, but if they're not composting, it's still just going to end up in a landfill, unfortunately. So it's one of those things, but everybody has to kind of get educated and take a step into the right direction. So yeah, that's a good point.
I saw a museum exhibit once in Manhattan that was all kind of magazines and newspapers that were years and years and years old in pristine condition that had been dug up from landfills because no air hit them. They were essentially like mummified People magazine issues and whatnot. It's kind of creepy, but it drove the point home that air is not circulating in there, so nothing is degrading in there.
Right, correct, yeah, and it's crazy. So the number that the community kind of tosses out there, so it's kind of like a general number, but 25% of what goes into a landfill can actually be composted. So that's quite a large number. Wow. And so that's a lot of diversion that we can do. And I think one of the things I really try to kind of get across to people is, I think in this day and age, like being environmentally friendly or conscientious is really kind of like trending, which is great. It should be a trend forever. But I think people think like, okay, I'm going to be environmentally friendly. I'm going to try to look for solar panels or windmills or these, like, they're great energy savers, but they cost a lot. They take a lot of time. Where you can sign up for composting, or if your transfer station has composting, everybody makes organic waste. So you can literally start tomorrow if you want to. And diverting that organic waste, it's removing it from the landfill, which hopefully then will lower the amount of methane gases that are released. And then with our facility, we're the only facility from here to Maryland that offers a full circle compost program. And what that means is, if you're a part of our program, you toss your organic waste into the bin, we compost it, it becomes soil. We do a give back every spring, but you can also buy our soil back then to grow your food. And then when your food is grown, you can put it back in the, if you're scraps, you can put it in the compost bin, and then thus the circle is complete. So not many compost facilities can even do that, and we're able. So that's the coolest thing I think about it.
That is cool.
I have a question, Jenny. So if I'm living in an apartment or, a smaller house, what's the best place for me to, store my things that I'm going to take either to the, the place at the Newmarket landfill where I can then, drop it off, or even if I'm getting pickup from you guys, I'm assuming it's once a week, right? Is that when the pickup is?
Newmarket, we only go there bi-weekly, so it would be bi-weekly, which is actually the most common plan. Most people do only bi-weekly anyway.
So do you guys have like a best practice or suggestions for how people can store that food waste? I mean, I have my own compost, so I just have a bucket under my sink that I put it in. But for a lot of people, I know that is a barrier for them, right? They don't have an easy way to store it. But I think if we could help them to know how to do that, we might get more takers. Because we have a lot of
Yeah.
people living in apartments or small homes in Newmarket.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I used to live in Newmarket. I love Newmarket. Yeah, so we actually service a lot of different apartment complexes. And usually what my I don't know. I think I always recommend tenants that are signing up to just check with their facilities manager or the property manager if they have one, to make sure that when they put their bin out, that's okay, or where they want them to put the bin out. I think a lot of people also are in apartment buildings, and then they just sign up because they want to compost and hopefully hope for the best. The In terms of storing it, so the way that I do it personally is I have a little countertop bin that I keep under my sink, and I have a small compostable liner in that. And then as that gets filled, I take that little liner bag and then I put it in my bigger Mr. Fox bin. Now, if you have a Mr. Fox bin, the lid that we have, if you snap it on tight enough, like, it really traps in all the smell and everything, and it has like a little flap, so you can just flap lid and put your stuff into it. I recommend trying to keep it in a cool location. So, like, if winter is great because a lot of people just keep it on their porch or on their front stoop. If you don't have that luxury, you can keep it inside. Some people will, every time they put in or they have just like a little scoop of baking soda, and they just sprinkle it on top of it to kind of keep the smell down if there is a smell. And then the other thing that a lot of people do is they have the organic waste in their compostable bags, and then they freeze it. And when it's their compost day or the night before, they take out all the blocks of the compost, put it in the bin, and then they leave it out. Obviously, I don't know your storage space in terms of how much room you have, but if you do bi-weekly and you're in an apartment, that's a common one that people do, is they store their stuff in the freezer.
Do you sell the compost other than to just the customers?
Oh yes, yep. So if you're a customer, in the spring we do a give back of, you get a complimentary bag of compost from us, and we give that back in burlap sacks. That way the customer can use the burlap bag to make compost tea, or if they don't want to use the burlap bag, that can go right into the compost bin, and it'll be able to break down in our facility. But bulk compost, so it's a 2-yard minimum. So we sell that all over, and then we also sell wholesale to local, like, landscapers, gardening centers as well.
I have a question. I had 2 questions, but Patrick asked one of my questions already, so that was great. Because I live in a small apartment and my kitchen has no ventilation. My other question is, right now I'm just bringing my compost, my food scraps, in a really, like, basically a big yogurt container to work, because we have a worm composter. But that has limitations, because there are certain foods you can't put in there, but it sounds like you don't have any limitations when it comes to food scraps.
Yeah, so good point. Yeah, so again, kind of going back to the whole, like, industrial facility, and we don't use worms or any of that, we're able to accept a whole lot more. So we're able to accept, like, pretty much any food scrap. We're able to accept any sort of shellfish, bones, meat, dairy. We can accept, soiled pizza boxes. We can accept egg cartons, bamboo products. We can accept all of the compostable packaging that's certified compostable. So yeah, it's a lot. Like, when you're like, oh, I could put this in there, it's quite a bit, and you don't have to really think too much about it, which is great. And then also back to the smell thing, you were saying, the small apartment with low ventilation. So the compost, it really doesn't smell all that bad. Even when you put things in it, I find, and I think a lot of people get surprised by that, but it's just the bin. Like if you snap that lid on tight, you really don't smell it too much. So
Great. So the compostable packaging includes the plastic like coffee cups, for example, as well, as long as it says certified compostable.
Yes, correct. So it would be the PLA number 7. That's the big thing to kind of look for. Now, don't be confused. There is a plastic number 7. So the key indicator is that it's the recycle symbol with the 7, and then it usually has PLA either under or next to it. And the PLA basically is standing for it's a plant-based product, which means that it's made with corn or what have you, so that can be compostable. And places like Big Bean, they use compostable packaging. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question for you. I know when we started the program in town at the transfer station, we were not allowing folks to bring pizza boxes and whatnot because we felt there was too much bulk because we got the smaller bins. And I just don't know if you happen to know if, because I we obviously now with the COVID, we've gotten much more takeout than typical. And now, thankfully, at least it's not just pure plastic. It's supposedly compostable. And I run compost here at home, so I don't usually take stuff to the transfer station. But those items specifically, I'm not an industrial composter at home, obviously. Right. So do you happen to know, I haven't followed since I was off that committee, if our town accepts the, I don't think they do pizza boxes yet, but do you know if they accept, like, can I just save up my to-go containers and bring them to the town transfer station and put them in that in the bins there, or is that better asked at the town level instead of asking you?
Yeah, I mean, so when we set up a transfer station, we try to make everything really simple. We try to make it simple for our residential customers and our commercial customers, and so we just tell them the same. Like we'll accept all of it. So if the town has some sort of regulation where they don't want pizza boxes going in or whatever, I guess that's to the town, and to them I would just say like, well, it's diverting the waste, so like why?
Yeah. The reasoning originally was, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, is we were trying to pitch it as a cost offsetting because we remove the heaviest items, right? We're taking the organic waste out, and we pay by weight to dispose of the other trash in town. So if we remove the weight, that it will save the town money, and therefore we can get these pay for the compost bins, So that was kind of the angle, and so that's why we have the small ones, and I think the bigger bins, which if everybody in town brought their pizza boxes there, it would be like a tremendous amount of pizza boxes, which would never fit in the little rollaways, the little guys. So maybe it's approach at the town level for getting a different.
I mean, I think like other towns, I mean, they put the pizza box, people just go because they are familiar with maybe Mr. Fox in general. They'll like put pizza boxes in, and they definitely put all the to-go containers. And there is a little bit of like an educational like curve for the people who are the actual attendants at the station, because sometimes they're like, no, that's recyclable or whatever, and you kind of have to educate them like, well, yeah, but like it can go in the bin. So I mean, we encourage like all of that. I mean, especially if restaurants if they're using compostable packaging, they're paying more for those products because they're compostable. So we might as well like do them the favor of actually composting it, as opposed to what they're trying for is to get it diverted from the landfill. So
great, excellent, thank you.
Jenny, do you have sort of a general fact sheet about composting with Mr. Fox, or I'm just thinking I'm putting together something for recycling because we had the recycling company come out, so that was really helpful. So I've kind of gone back and forth with them a couple times, and now I've got that covered, and I want to put that out to people in the town. It would be nice if we could put something together for composting, and it could cover everything. I'd like to cover everything. So the Mr. Fox option, taking
Oh,
did I get cut off there? Yeah, sorry. So I wanted to kind of cover that so that because we do get a lot of general questions where people will be like, "Move to town, I want to know about composting," and I would like to have something that kind of covered all the options that they have. Like, if you want to do it at home, here's how to do it. If you want to have someone pick it up, here's how to do it. If you're going to bring it to the landfill, here's how to do it.
mm-hmm.
So even if you're just covering your end, that would be really helpful to have.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of different types of documentation, and I'm more than happy to send them on over to you. And then if it's still not quite what you're looking for, I can, like, if you have a list of questions that have already been asked or that you'd like as like a guideline, like, I'm more than happy to create something for you guys.
I think we've covered a lot of them actually tonight that I've seen. I think usually the biggest ones are, can I do it? How do I do it? And what can I put in it? Those are really the three questions.
Mm-hmm. Great, yeah. Just I'll send over what documentation I have, and you can take a look at it. And if there's something that you're not seeing, I can probably make it for you.
All right, thank you.
Chris, Chris, does the Environment and Energy Committee have that list together? Because I believe we kind of the Mr. Fox option at the transfer station came out of the Environment and Energy Committee. Time we kind of had a list maybe, and I don't know where it's at these days, if it's even discussed on that board anymore.
I will tell you that Tony Weinstein has been integral in that regard about composting and about the whole recycling thing. So let me ask her, because lately our thrust has been about energy on the solar panels and that kind of discussion with electric opportunities with electricity. Sorry. So let me research that a little bit, because that predates me. I have been on I am on E&E, but only for the last couple of months. So thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. I'll find out. I'm writing it down right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions for Jenny? Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. It's wonderful to learn more.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Now you don't have to commute home. You can just leave meeting and there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And if you guys have any questions, you can always email the customer service box at Mr. Fox, and we'll get back to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. So I wanted to turn it over to Melissa Brogel, who had a project she wanted to talk about with the Cemetery Commission.
Yeah, so I during the week-long cleanup that I helped organize, Stacy, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Stacy Mazer, on the trustees for the cemeteries, Facebook messaged me and let me know that the hill between the Calvary Cemetery and the industrial park is just full of debris from the cemetery. So like the wire things from wreaths and planter pots and a bunch of stuff like that. So she was curious about maybe teaming up with the Conservation Commission to do a cleanup there. So I just kind of wanted to open it up. I mean, I'm pretty much always willing to do cleanups, so I could just go with her or the trustees and do it. But I also wanted to open it up to the group and see if there was any other interest in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I would volunteer for that. That's fine. Do we want to maybe toss it out to the board, something like that?
Yeah, I was curious if anyone kind of had ideas for that too. There's the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the local basketball team that also helped that week during the cleanup. That's he said the coach said they're always looking for community service events too. So it could be kind of like a fun, almost like kids event, which would be really fun.
Sounds good. I think you should get a date out there, and then we can all sort of focus on promoting it.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
like a great idea.
All right, I will do that.
Okay. So we had next on the agenda, we have 75 Neal Mill Road, but I actually created this before I knew that we were going to have a planning board rep here tonight. So I thought it might help actually to start with updates from the planning board and the town council in case they have anything regarding 75 Neal Mill Road to share before we move to that agenda item. So, Jeff, do you want to start since you guys just met recently?
I was just trying to pull some things up here on this other screen. So we did meet on Tuesday evening and discuss the project at 75 Neal Mill Road. A motion was put forward, which was slightly lengthy, and there was some discussion regarding it. And essentially, I guess without getting into too much detail, I was able to get a draft copy of the motion. So if there are questions to the specifics, I do have that document when it's finalized and reviewed by the planning board chair. I will be able to share it, but I can't share the document itself until that time, until it's finalized. So I guess to say the general gist of it was to kind of give guidance to the town council as to what they should be looking for in an application for that building permit, and not to have the through design, full roadway design without knowing if the town council would be willing to allow the building permit in the first place. So that was kind of the thought, and that the planning board's role is essentially to review what's initially provided, and give the guidance as to what maybe, if it were more complete, perhaps we would have offered more input, but we offered input on what was provided, and then steps that we think would be proper for the town council to take as far as further review, more or less. So that is, the motion was presented. It was amended to say essentially that the town council, if they so desire to allow it to happen, to and they want the planning board to provide technical review assistance, then the planning board would do so as the town council asked, and that if the town council decided to not a building permit on Neal Mill Road for whatever reason they see, that they entertain the idea of turning the roadway into a Class A trail. So kind of where it stands right now, it's more or less in the hands of the town council. I hope I explained it okay. The motion was lengthy, and at the time it was read, and I kind of tried to get the gist of it then, but I just kind of received it relatively recently. So if there are questions, I can pull it up on my end and answer them. And I hope that helps.
Does anyone have any questions for Jeff? Okay. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Was it
Yeah.
was it was that the only thing on the agenda on Tuesday, or did you guys have anything else that you think is important for us to know?
There were a number. There was more than typical, but I don't think that there's anything else that I would think that the commission would be interested in. 75 Mill Mill Road would be, I think, the headline. And like I said, I'm more than happy to discuss further if folks have questions, and can do my best at answering them.
Okay.
But if the commission does, certainly, obviously the the motion that we're going to provide to the town council will certainly become public. You know, when it's finalized. Essentially, it was read, put down on paper, and just needs final review and sign off by the chairman of the planning board to make sure that it was drafted properly.
Okay. Megan, town council.
Thank you. And I definitely don't have anything to add to that. That hasn't come to the town council yet. Nothing that I could add that would be more in depth than what Jeff would be able to share. Yeah, nothing that's specifically of interest, I think, to the Conservation Commission. I do just, in any space I'm in, want to be clear that the mask ordinance is still in place. I know the CDC guidelines just changed again, so there's been a lot of questions about that. But the ordinance is still in place. But other than that, nothing conservation related.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay, so we'll now move on to the agenda item that is listed as 75 Neal Mill Road. I shared a few documents with you. I shared the letter that we received from the Newfields Conservation Commission that was shared. I believe it was actually addressed, and then the town planner shared it with me. And then I shared with you the most recent letter that was received by the planning board from Southeast Land Trust, which was written by Dwayne Hyde. And I think those are two very important documents because those are other property abutters out there in addition to the properties that we're responsible for, Silverman Schneer. And then last but not least, Ellen has shared her letter that she has drafted, which is really the focal point of what we're going to be talking about tonight, where she summarizes the issues and concerns out there at 75 Neal Mill Road. And when I say 75 Neal Mill Road, it's not really with a house to be built, because that's not really the issue. It's the driveway, obviously, is the issue. Because you can't have the house out there without those changes to the current Class 6 road. And it's, I believe, 700 feet, or is it 700 yards, Jeff? I can't recall now.
It's feet, 700.
Feet, 700 feet that there's proposing. So I think
I think they might actually be further out. I thought it was 12. Was it not 1,200?
Well, supposedly the distance from the end of the Class 5 road to where their driveway will cut into the field is 750. But it kind of points out the fact that we don't have the plan is not super detailed what they provide so far, which is kind of one of the issues, or a big issue.
So I think it might be most helpful, Ellen, to hear from you, and if you want to outline the most important parts of what you've written, so that we can make sure that anyone has any questions about those points that you made.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm sorry I sent it this morning and it's fairly long, but as Jeff said, they just met Tuesday night and I had to listen to what they were actually going to do to know what I thought we should discuss. So as I said in my letter, they've discussed this 4 times. It was first presented in February. And it was at that period where the planning board was assuming they'd have a site walk and that they would get more information. And sort of in subsequent meetings, I think, I'm not really sure why those things didn't happen, but eventually it came down to now this last, the planning board's like, well, we need more information. I think is kind of what people feel, but that's costly. So if the council is going to say no anyway, why make them go through that? So it's kind of a chicken and egg. We can't really assess all the potential impacts without a more detailed plan from the applicants. So either have to go with what we got, and you've read the letters from CELT. The attorney for CELT spoke at a couple of the meetings, as did the attorney for the applicant. And none of those issues have really been sort of discussed through. They've been presented by the abutters and by the attorneys, but the planning board didn't like hash them out and discuss them. So again, those issues are out there. The use of that public way by a private driveway, we have no detail about how they're going to accommodate recreational access, winter, year-round recreational access. What's the tread going to be like? Are they going to cut trees? You know, really what the impact is on that public way. It's a public resource. It's our community resource. So I think the town has an obligation to understand fully what that private use of our public way will be. And I don't think we have enough information to make that determination. The information we have so far doesn't indicate any positive impacts any positives to the town. There's no benefit to the town of having a private driveway over a public way. So I tried to look at, you know, we don't have enough information in terms of an engineering plan. It's not really clear how the public access is going to be accommodated as well as restricted in terms of there's a gate there, then that has limited off-road vehicle access. That hasn't really been sorted out. And as we know, we have very significant ecological features out there, including the two properties that the town holds easements on, where the driveway would pass by. And so it's our obligation to make sure we're protecting the interests of those the easements which the town holds. So I tried to go back and look at the master plan, which is really the guiding document that we're supposed to use for decision making. And I think the planning board motion mentioned the master plan. And I think it says that it's not in opposition to the master plan, which I would disagree with, because I think, again, there's no way we have enough information to say for sure that it isn't in the master plan. And again, I think if you look at the master plan, it's actually not in concert with the master plan, because it talks about infill development. It talks about protecting all these really important natural resources, protecting our drinking water, and this will not do that. This is a really scattered potential house out in a very unfragmented part of town that has a lot of important resources. So I talked about the master plan. I talked about the two conservation easements that the town holds. As you know, we've committed a lot of funding to help protect land out there, both recently with the Tucker Tract and earlier with the Pescasset Greenway. The town is putting the well in at the Tucker property, so there's a lot of investment that we've put into that region. Let's see, and then the fact that the town of Newfields, the citizens designated their two roads, Oldie Road and Halls Mill Road, as Class A trails. That just sort of really highlights the fact that, you know, we should have done this on our sections as well, and maybe we can get to that point here. And then I just included references to the ecological significance of the region. So, you know, I thought about this, and we could say, well, we don't have enough information, so the council should send it back to the planning board, but that's kind of what they did in the first place. So if it's my contention that this is such a significant region for ecological features, drinking water resources, recreational resources, it's a public way, these are our community resources, the council in its purview can say, no, we don't think this is something we want to permit, and can deny it on those grounds. And we could then proceed with making a Class A trail, which is really what it should be, in my opinion. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Ellen or comments?
I want to compliment Ellen on this write-up. It's amazing. Fantastic letter. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Got great info. Yeah. I mean, my concerns are, in the minutia, things like if they're plowing, you mentioned in the letter, where's it going to go? Or maybe the salt letter mentioned that. What about salt? Where does that end up? And if there's maintenance on that 700-foot stretch, who's responsible for the upkeep of that? Is it the town? If the road starts to give way, or if they
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is it's always difficult when you have an applicant in front of you. These people very nice and they're interested in doing this, and they have they may be interested in conservation or doing things the right way or what have you, but this is in perpetuity. You have to remove that applicant from the idea of this is allowed or not allowed, because down the road somebody else is going to live there and they may do very different things that are very harmful that we thought, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen out there, but we have no controls over what would happen out there once a property is allowed to build. So I think it's really important that we think about this in perpetuity and not think about this current applicant. And there's Selt laid out lots of various, those are other sort of town. I didn't really want to get into all the other sort of town issues, because I think I tried to really still stay focused on these natural, cultural, recreational resources, which I think is our purview. There's a whole bunch of other town issues that presumably the council will discuss.
I want to ditto what Melissa said about thank you for putting all the information in such a comprehensive manner and lay it out and remind us of the history. Because on the one hand, it feels like, excuse me, this has been going on forever, and you've really compressed it for us. Thank you.
I have a quick question. This property has not been sold right, is that correct? The people wanting to build a house haven't purchased it.
Right. We actually have seen their purchase and sales. It's pending approval, I believe, that they get a permit. Right.
Also, a great report. I learned a lot by just reading the report you put together.
Good. Thank you.
Could you give a little synopsis? What is it? The trail you're referring to, or the definition of the 1A trail?
The Class A trails. So,
Class A, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on Class 6 roads and Class A trails. The state laws are a little confusing, but a Class 6 road, you actually can't gate it and lock it. You have to allow public in. So there's a gate, it does prevent most people from going through. And the town is not allowed to put any money into a Class 6 road. And typically, we don't have, this is the only one besides Hershey Lane. We've got 2 left in town. A Class A trail essentially makes it a trail. It's no longer a road. So you don't have, you can put a gate and lock the gate. It's really for recreational passage. It would still allow management access. So if Selt wanted to do forestry or other management, if this landowner wanted to do field mowing, that access is still allowed. It's just, you're allowed to gate it, and then the town is allowed to put in resources to do stuff to the trail to make it better.
So recommending, or if the end product is making it a trail, that would be the new in perpetuity standard that all other decisions would ever be based on, correct?
Well, it's actually, it has to go to the town warrant. So the council, if it went this way, the council would say, yeah, we think it should be a Class A trail, and I think it becomes a warrant article, and the citizens vote on it.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was the piece I was.
It's a little. I'm certain that the applicant or the underlying landowner will have an issue, because when there's an abutter who may not support the idea of it being a Class A trail and they have frontage, I'm certain there's a legal issue with that. But that's what we do as a community. We make decisions. If legal implications. And I think
Right.
in the case, the values of that area so outweigh that we need to assume that there could be some legal action that we need to take. I think we just have to go in with that assumption that this is not just like, oh yeah, okay, let's make it a trail and everybody's gonna be really happy. That's probably not, gonna be completely the way it would work.
But it reverts to the idea of the greater good for the most people for the longest time, rather than the unknown of what would happen if it were to become a one home, one family incident, let's say.
Right, and we're not really is the fact that they're using this public way. They're losing over
Right.
700 feet of the public way, and everything stems from that. And so, if they were only going to go in 20 feet, and then the property was right there, it probably wouldn't be as big. But they're going way into this unfragmented area, and they're using the public way, and we've got land on either side. So it's just a lot of public value there, and the town has to look out for what potential economic liability it may have based on that development out there.
The economic liability is huge.
Yeah, potentially
I'm interested in how much more we know now than we even did 10 or 15 years ago about the unfragmented, not walkways, but corridors for wildlife, and how much more we know. I mean, 15 years ago, except for people in your profession, Ellen, but regular people who are interested in ecology might not have thought of the unfragmented. We thought it was okay in planning to have this neighborhood had this much land around it, and then we had a neighborhood over here, and then we had a neighborhood over here. But in fact, we had bisected a migratory path, for instance. We just didn't know that much about it that long ago. So I think the unfragmented piece, along with some of the ideas that we've been aware of through the Newfields perspective, is paramount here, I think.
Yeah. It's a corridor for people and nature.
Yeah.
And just to add on to what Ellen said, I did find it just now, but when Newfield switched it from Class 6 road to Class A trail, it did go via warrant article. It's on their 2019 articles.
Yeah, I think I actually included it, and the vote was pretty significantly. I think I might have actually included that. It was like 365 to 75.
Yeah.
And that was true for both Old Lee Road and at their end, it's called Halls Mill Road.
Halls Mill Road.
Yeah. So Neal Mill Road becomes Halls Mill Road in Newfields. So right at the town line, it becomes a Class 8 trail in Newfields. Or it's still a Class 6, and the same with Old Lee Road. Ours is still a Class 6, and then the Newfields piece is a Class 8 trail.
And just to clarify, the change of status to the Class A trail would not curtail any of the current activities that occur in terms of snowmobiling, mountain biking, horseback riding, walking. I think there's portions of the land out there that people are allowed to hunt, not every part of the property, but so it doesn't change what the property is primarily being used for today, which is recreation, wildlife viewing, fishing, things like that. So no change to how the land is currently being used, and Southeast Land Trust or any other property holder out there that needs to manage their land, so mowing, timber, construction, of bridges and so on, things like that, that's still permitted as well. So in a lot of ways, what we're really looking at here is how do we best maintain what we have today, which we think has significant value. I would say, if anything that this last year has taught us is that the value of the recreational opportunities and lands that we have in Newmarket went up tremendously because people discovered the value of being able to go to the property that is close to their homes and use it and get outside and with their families. I just think that that it adds so much to our town to have properties like that. It's a very significant economic value that I think people are looking at right now. So in the future, when people say, I'm going to move to a place, one of the things they'll look at is what are my opportunities in that place to recreate outdoors? Do they have open space? Do they have parks? Do they have conserved land? Can I ride my bike, cross country ski, bird watch, whatever it may be? So I think that one of the things that we're looking out for in this approach is just to, we think there's a tremendous value. There's been a tremendous investment. It's actually increased in value, I think, is what we've discovered over the past year, and we want to preserve that. We don't want to lose that investment that we've made in all these public lands and this wonderful trail system that we have, that we feel, or I feel, and I think Ellen's letter reflects this, is at risk. The one of the things that this change in status of this public way would do would put that current status at risk. I feel it would change the nature of the access point that we have today to all of the land that's out there in Newmarket and Newfields that all of us get to enjoy. And so for me, the reason I would support this letter would be that I don't want to see that go away. I think there's such a value there, and it's such an important piece of lands that have been put together by a coalition of groups and people, that this is where we need to make a stand. So I guess that'd be my starting point as to why I would support a motion to put this forward as our letter, this project, how we feel about it.
Are you looking for a motion to that effect,
No,
Patrick?
that I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion that we submit this letter as the letter from the Conservation Commission regarding the proposed project at 75 Neil Road.
Second that.
Any other discussion or questions?
Sorry, was that Melissa Sharples?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Actually, can I ask a quick question?
Jeff? Yeah.
That's a quick question. I do not recall if the planning board member is a voting member.
You are.
And I also just want to point out that I appreciate how Ellen has included both the portions of Hall's Mill or Neil Mill and Old Lee Road in this letter to be potential Class A trail.
Okay, Sue, why don't you call the roll on the motion as it stands?
Patrick Reynolds,
Yeah, aye.
Jeff Goldnoff,
Aye.
Ellen Snyder,
Aye.
Melissa Sharples,
Aye.
Aye.
Chris Blackstone,
Aye.
and Kenny.
Aye.
Okay. It's 7-0-0.
Thank you.
Approved.
That's really great. Patrick, I can redraft this and send it to you, and you would sign it, I assume, and send it on, or?
I shall do that. I think since it was 7-0, we should put everybody's name on it, though, just sort of modeling it after what Newfields did. I thought that was a good approach, just to show that we're all in agreement on this.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
Can I mention one other thing real quick? Oops, sorry. Would you like to have some?
Sue, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question for Jeff. Last night when Val was reading the motion the second time, I taped it and I heard some mention about a law, like a law class on Class 6 roads or something like that, as mentioned in it.
Yeah, there's a book in a series of seminars, I guess we'll say, as Hard Road to Travel.
Yeah.
It's a book that's widely cited by surveyors and people that deal with Class 6 roads. Essentially gets into road law. I did not attend that. I wasn't able to, unfortunately.
Okay, so that's what they were referring to, that everyone had to look at what is said about Class 6 roads?
It could be. I might. I don't know that I'm remembering the exact moment. there's RSAs regarding Class 6 roads.
Yes.
I don't know if that's what you're getting. Is that it?
Yeah. I mean,
Oh.
the motion was almost 6 minutes long.
Let me take a look at the motion and see. So it's part of the motion?
It was.
There was a mention of RSA 231, which has to do with emergency vehicle access, or I believe.
Okay.
It says, well, it might not. It says, and any requirements dictated by RSA 231. That is not this RSA specific to Class 6 roads, though. I'm not 100% familiar with RSA 231, I'll say.
I was listening.
The third review of RSA 67441, public hearing, that has to do with a public hearing on Class 6 roads.
I was listening, and I think I recall that as being like Val Shelton was this sort of listing of all the various sources of information that had come in, and that was one had been to that seminar, I think.
The seminar, yes.
As I remember what she was speaking about.
Yes, exactly. And so one thing I was going to point out real quick that I just wanted to mention was that any documents that are referenced or cited or talked about at the planning board are typically within the planning board agenda. So if you go to the town's website and open up that planning board agenda, that's listed under each meet. You can go there and you can pull up any agenda. The agenda is like 70 pages long, and there's a whole host of information on that 75 Neil Mill Road project. All the letters that have been submitted by various people and organizations are all kind of attached to the agenda.
Actually, 177 pages.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Quick read.
We don't have an agenda that long, do we, Patrick?
No.
I've never seen a Concom agenda that long.
Okay. Jeff, did you have another question? You were starting to raise your hand for a question. Did you have another?
No, I was just simply going to point out that all that documentation is there for folks to go get. That was all I was going to mention.
Okay.
Can I ask one clarifying question? I'm listing the names of the people that were able to vote, or is that I don't know how to.
That would be. I think it's okay to list everybody who voted yes.
But Melissa, she wasn't voting, but can I list her or not list? I just want to make sure I do it right. So.
It's fine with me if you do, but because if I was a voting member, I would have voted the same way. But if
okay, we'll put you down as an alternate, and you said
yeah. Okay. I think as long as she's listed as alternate, that's probably fine.
Let's do that. Very good, thank you.
Megan is ex officio town council voting, non-voting, ex officio.
Okay.
Would I list you on there then, Megan, or not?
I share your opinion, so I'm fine with my name being listed on there. Okay. Protocol wise, I'm not sure.
As long as it says Melissa ex officio, it's allowed. Well, I don't want to say it is allowed with anyone who is ex officio, you or not you or anybody in any town. So
I would encourage. I mean, I don't know if the commission or Megan, this wouldn't be on the town council's agenda, obviously, as of yet. I don't know how far out something like this would be, or how long it takes to get on that agenda.
I mean, if it gets to Wendy by Friday, then it would be on next week's agenda.
Okay. I don't know if the Conservation Commission wants to send a representative to speak, even along with the letter. It might have a little more impact. That's all.
Well, my feeling is when it gets on the agenda, we should definitely be there to speak on it. I'm not sure if it isn't on the agenda yet that there's much to say. but we'll certainly send this letter along to them and share it with them, and I'll, CC the planning board as well. But yeah, I kind of look for the town council to get on the agenda, and I would assume it would have to be on the agenda multiple times, right? Because you do it, you're not going to vote on the first time you have it on the agenda, probably. So there's going to be.
So it would be first reading and then 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Yep. Up for discussion.
So, but as soon as I find out it's on the agenda, I will blast out an email to everybody so that everyone knows that. So if anyone wants to go speak, they can.
This could have a quick turnaround. I mean, Ellen's got the draft and we didn't make any amendments to the draft, right?
Right.
You're on mute still, Ellen.
I'll run it by Patrick, so make sure we've got it, the names listed properly before we send it.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from our meeting on April 8th? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
And was that a second from you, Chris?
Sure, yes. I was so moving and then she did, so I'll second.
Okay. Sue, do you want to call a roll on that? You're on mute.
Jeff Golnoff,
Abstain?
abstain.
Yes, I was not present.
Patrick Reynolds,
Aye.
Ellen Snyder,
Aye.
David Bell,
Aye.
Sam Kenny,
Aye.
Chris Blackstone,
Aye.
Melissa Sharples.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 6-1. Oh no, 6-0-1 with Jeff abstaining.
Okay. So let me go over everything I've got on here. I skipped over this item, so I'll come back to it. We have a request from the Newmarket Freemasons to use Shanda Park on Saturday, 10 to 2-ish. They're going to do a commemorative ceremony for Mr. Shanda, who was one of their founding members, who they made a large donation to Shanda Park in honor of, just to have a ceremony in his honor there. So I have a permit for a request to do that ceremony. And I would like to see if I have a motion to accept that.
Saturday, like the day after tomorrow?
Yes, it was short notice. There isn't anyone else scheduled to use the park that day.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit.
Thanks, Sam.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jeff, you're abstaining again because you weren't.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just want to make sure. Okay.
Sorry, I had my hand up as an aye, but I was still muted.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So under the chair's report, I've got one couple items. One, we're going to talk about the Wigan Farm signs that Ellen distributed. So we'll cover that in just a second. But a couple of other things, just brief things. I had a request from some folks out at Moody Point about the rain barrels. Now, those of you that go back a ways with the Conservation Commission will recall, I believe when Fred Pearson was on the Conservation Commission, we purchased a bunch of rain barrels, which Fred was then kind enough to store. I believe he had a barn on his property, so he stored the rain barrels on his property, and then people could come buy rain barrels, and he was sort of our rain barrel dealer. But once Fred was no longer on the commission, we didn't continue that program, primarily because we did not have a good place to store rain barrels, and then also be someone who would be willing to sort of be the de facto rain barrel dealer for us, because I mean the program wasn't money making. I think we were ordering the barrels, and by ordering, you know, a larger number, we got a better price, and then we sold them to the public at that same price because we're, you know, it was a public service. Does that sound right, Jeff and Ellen? Does that sound right? As you guys remember the rain barrel program?
Yeah, we did rain barrels and composters, and we had purchased them at cost. Sorry, we purchased them in bulk, and then they were initially stored in Fred's, you know, the loft of his barn, and then they were sold to folks actually in Newmarket and surrounding towns for the cost they were purchased at. And then eventually we were told that we were not allowed to keep them on private. Essentially, they were town property being stored on private property.
Oh,
So we
okay.
attempted to move them to DPW, and you know, we tried. You know, can we do that at the transfer station? And people didn't want to babysit them over there, and kind of. So the program, I believe, faded out at that point. And it was around the time Fred left. It might have even been just before he left the commission.
Yeah.
That we stopped dealing with those, or maybe he had a couple left and then they were gone. But
So Dover, so there's a company called the Great American Rain Barrel Company, which is maybe where the rain barrels were purchased from, and they have community programs. And did one in Dover with the Dover Democrats. I'm not sure why that was a fundraiser for them or how that worked, but I just got one. You ordered it. It's over now. They did it, and there must have been hundreds. So it's one day. Everybody goes there to pick up their rain barrel on that day. It was like about a month ago. And I love my rain barrel. It's really nice. So I can see why people want them, but we might, if I don't know what the interest is out there, but to me, that's the way you might want to go about it, is you do a program with them, and then there's a day where people order it, and then you go pick up your barrel on that day.
Yeah, a finite window. I think that's worked in a couple of communities.
Yeah, we got one for work through that same exact program, Ellen, and it was pretty smooth. So I would agree with you on maybe that's the way to go.
So do you think we'd want to organize an event, or do you think we should reach out and see if there's any more events in the Seacoast, and then maybe we could give that information out to the public?
That's what I would do personally. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
You can just go on their website, Great American Rain Barrel Company, and they'll tell you what community programs, what towns might have a program going.
I know that when we purchased them and did happen in like I don't know, Fred used to always say that he felt like that the market was saturated, as kind of a joke, but it would happen, like you wouldn't sell any for months, and then all of a sudden you'd sell like 6 of them, you know. And then we'd hem and haw as to whether we should order 10 more or 20 more or 30 more. It was like such an unknown, and then they'd sit there for a long time, then they'd all get sold all of a sudden. So the idea of a single.
Yeah, and then you order it, so there's no inventory. Everybody, order it.
Exactly.
You get your barrel.
Exactly. That sounds like a great idea, to organize a single event.
Okay. The next thing I had was, I just wanted to kind of give everyone an update on this. So the state, I got notice from the state that they had closed the herring fishery down for the entire state of New Hampshire. So as you guys know, we have the fish weir here in Newmarket, and the reason we interact with it is the guy who operates it, Jerry Collins, stores it at Shanda Park. So when the fishery was closed, I reached out to Jerry. I said, probably don't want to have the fish weir sitting there all summer on Shanda Park land. That's just not a good idea. But so he moved it into the river, and it's just open. So if you see it in the water this year, it's not that he's catching herring in it. there's no nets out there. You'll notice he's got the sticks in the river, but there's no nets. So any fish would just pass through it. Just in case anyone asks about that, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows he's following the rules, and that's what the state said was okay. It's okay to put that cage thing in the water as long as the fish can swim through. So
Just a little story. Chris and I were meeting at Shannon Park today, and a guy was pulled down in a Subaru and was looking at it. And he goes, "What's that thing out in the river?" And we described it as best we could. And he's like, "Boy, I've seen everything now." He was totally. He thought that was pretty wild.
yeah, well, let's. I mean, I think New Hampshire was the last state who hadn't closed their herring fishery. Um, so it's not, the numbers aren't good. When I talked to Fish and Game, they said they are concerned. So the I was there the other day and I saw them. There are herring in there now. So let's hope they. It's actually good because when there's not a lot of water coming over the dam, they have an easier time getting up our fish ladder. That's one of the problems with the fish ladder is when there's a lot of water coming over the dam, they get pushed out. They can't get up the ladder. So we're actually in a good place right now for them to run up the river, and they can get all the way up to Wadley Falls um, before they reach a dam that they cannot get past. So it is amazing when you see a good run. It is pretty cool to go down there and see the fish because they're just splashing all around, and you think, what's that in the water? And it's all these fish migrating upstream. So let's hope it's good. Tree presentation with Kevin Martin. I am pleased to announce that will be coming up. Let me just read from the announcement. Big Trees of New Hampshire with author Kevin Martin is scheduled for Wednesday, June 2nd at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. This is being sponsored by the Conservation Commission and Public Library. If you go on the Newmarket Public Library site, there is a place where you can register by for the Zoom link. So all you have to do is email newmarketlibrarystaff@gmail.com, and this web address is on their site. Kevin Martin is a wooden boat builder, outdoorsman. He'll be discussing his book, Big Trees of New Hampshire, and he will specifically call out local trees in Newmarket. So if you want to know about big trees located in Newmarket, Kevin will be talking about them. So I'm very excited about that, and I hope everyone signs up for that. Our scholarship application letter has been sent to the guidance department. Was sent this spring, so we're waiting to get responses. I need 3 volunteers from the Conservation Commission who would be willing to review those letters and make a decision on who to award the scholarship to if we are more than one applicant. If we get one applicant, we just have to decide on that one person, but typically we have sort of subcommitteed that out to a few people. So do I have any volunteers who would be willing to read the letters and then make a decision on who to award the scholarship to?
I'll volunteer.
So Chris, Melissa, anyone else?
Melissa Sharples.
Melissa Sharples, okay. So the letters are to come to Town Hall, care of the Conservation Commission. So I'm going to make an effort to get down there. But if any of you guys, Melissa, if you also have a chance to get down there, Melissa Sharples, I'm okay with you going there and checking if there's any letters from any applicants if you have a chance to go down, because typically we probably award it before our next meeting in June, and we would then have someone go. I don't know, there'll be a ceremony this year that we'd be able to go to. Typically, they have an awards night where we would present the scholarship to that at the awards night. But I'm thinking that might be, if they have it, it might be very limited as to who can attend. It might be only open to friends and graduates or something like that. But I'll find out and I'll let you guys know. So keep fingers crossed. Hopefully we get some applicants. Thank you guys for doing that. Okay, signs for Wigan Farm. So I'm going to start by sharing these. So let me get that up here. Let's see here. I just gotta find it. There they are. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see that.
Yes.
So these are the signs that Ellen came up with for replacements for Wigan Farm. Ellen, I don't know if you want to review anything as we go through them.
Yeah, Patrick, I actually changed some of them. I have a different version if you want me to share that.
That would be fine. Let me stop
right?
sharing. Yep, let me stop sharing.
I just tweaked them a little bit, but they're a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, hold on. Let's see. I can do that. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, let me see if I can put on slideshow. There's too many things on these things. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I think if you've seen the ones that are out there now, they're 4x4 posters of piece of plywood, and then the old ones were under a plexiglass, and they were sort of laminated paper, and they're totally faded, and you can't read most of them. So seems like a good time to replace them. So I took one of them off, and we can easily reuse the posts, and the plywood is all there, and so we can just take off the plexiglass. There's a lot of screws, but it's easy to take off. And then these would be aluminum, traditional signs they make now, these aluminum signs. So they're very color resistant, and they can be mounted with screws right onto that plywood. So we're basically just taking the old ones off and putting these new ones in. And I just drafted these. I tried to, so we didn't have to move the posts. I tried to pick topics that were interesting, but they would fit with kind of where most of the posts are. So we don't really have to move. We might want to move one post. And I put the town seal, and I had Chris helped a little bit. We were talking about how to, you put a contact, but it gets complicated if you try to put some kind of contact. So I just said it was, the Wigan Farm owned and managed by the town of Newmarket. So anyway, I can just zip through these. I don't know that we need to wordsmith them, but if people want to help or want to look at these in more detail before we actually, if you decide you want to go ahead with it, if we, a couple more eyes to look at the actual text. But yeah, I thought this one about woodcock and the alders along the edge of the field is kind of cool. Eastern red cedar, I find it just a really interesting plant, and there's a lot of it along the stone wall, so that story is kind of cool. The old field habitat, this would be in where we did the Bronto work this spring. So that's interesting. Beavers and wetlands are always interesting, in my opinion. The swamps and marshes, which is a large part of what the Wigan Farm is back behind there. And there are some black gum trees in there, which is cool. You're getting my biases of what I think is important, so feel free to, if you think there's some other topics that would be better, that's totally cool. I'm really into dead trees and fallen logs from a wildlife perspective, so there. The farming history for the post that's up by the edge of the field. Of course, the milkweed and for monarchs, we have to talk about that. And then I thought it would be helpful to have one along the trail that talks about unleash and picking up dog waste. So those, I think that's 9. There are 10, I think there are 10 posts out there. There's 3 down by the pond, and I don't think we need 3 there. So I think we could just take one out, and we might want to move one more toward the entrance when you go over the bridge, and then go around, because that's really where, you know, you can talk about the alder and the woodcock right there, or you could talk about the monarchs there. So, and then Patrick had asked about creating a couple signs that we would put right at the bridge and then up at the gate about foot traffic only, no vehicles or bikes. And I thought that should just be some sort of different, you know, more alert kind of a sign. So just a plain sign, like something like this. And that would also be aluminum that we could mount. We could mount one on the gate, and the another one could be on a post right before you go over the bridge, I think. Yeah, so that's, and I did get a cost a while back from Portsmouth Sign, which is the place I typically use over in Newington. They do a great job. They would be, she gave me an estimate of $65 a piece. There might be some layout, so, you know, we might want to buffer that a little bit, but if we did 12, well, let's see, we got 9. So that I said 12, like, let's just, if we might do 12, that's $780. We might want to buffer that a little bit, have to buy some screws. So if you think this is a good idea and you want to do it, I was thinking maybe up to $1,000, and that way it's covered, and then we'll, you know, probably won't spend that much, but, so that would be my suggestion, if you think it's a good idea. Back to one of these.
I love it. I think it's a great idea, and I'm happy to edit the signs.
Great.
I like the tone of this with the please do this and thank you for doing that. I think this one, I think they're all good, but I think this one is a nice tone for us to be setting out there.
Well, one thing I think I should point out is that I think that our town has this parcel listed as okay for dogs off leash. But I think traditionally the sign has said that we request dogs be on leash during, I think it's like the bobolink mating season or nesting season. But I think the town allows by ordinance dogs off leash on this parcel.
Mm.
Just throw it out there. I don't think it's a bad idea to keep dogs on leash, but I just don't know if it's a conflict. That's all.
Okay, we can check on that.
Yeah, I know I've looked into it before because it was a big question. As it's like listed. There's like, I don't know, 5 parcels in town listed by tax map and lot, unless they've been repealed since I've last looked, which was probably 5 years ago. So
yeah, it might be interesting to revisit that because, you know, particularly with COVID, as Patrick said earlier, you know, so many more people are on trails, and I'm not sure that that's going to change. And I was dealing with this in Durham, that with so many more people on trails and so many more dogs, it's really not appropriate for dogs to be off leash unless there's nobody around. Like if your dog's under control, there's nobody around, no problem. But you don't, I think you have to cover the base to say, please keep your dog on leash. You know, people can use their own judgment, but I just, I've become a little, I have dogs, so I've become a little bit hard-nosed about this because people's dogs run up to other people, they run through the fields, you know, it's, I don't know. This was conserved with a lot of wildlife, drinking water, money. It's not supposed to be, you know, dog run free kind of a place, so.
Also, you don't know when a person's going to show up. So you're busy thinking there's nobody here, but in fact, I am here and you didn't know it because I was coming this way and you hadn't even seen me yet.
Oh, I'm not completely disagreeing.
No, I totally understand. But I'm just saying, maybe we should revisit that ordinance and see if that shouldn't be changed.
Yeah, there's a couple, they're town properties that are listed too, and I think there's 3 or 5 or something like that.
And it's a dog ordinance, Jeff, is that?
I could probably look it up pretty quick and let you know.
I'm trying to look at it right now.
Okay, well, we can, you know, we'll fix it up to make it sure, or we can wait on this one and see if we want to change the ordinance. Or
one thing that I find that a lot of people are curious about, myself included, is often the orange jelly within the juniper or the red cedar, that like orange jelly like stuff you see up in there. That's like it's such a super interesting thing. Like you see it and it's like so out of ordinary color besides salamanders perhaps. And it's like, what is that orange stuff? You know? I don't know if
I thought of that too, because I thought people might think it was interesting to know about where their male and female plants and whatnot too.
Yeah, we'll see if we can fit. There's a lot on that one already, but we'll see if we can juggle it.
I also have, I don't know if it's of interest to you, Ellen, or if you have the documents, some of the previous owners of that property provided the Concom with old photographs and stories, essentially a story, a little history, I believe, if I remember right, of kind of that property back before it was conserved and when there was still a farm on there. Some neat images.
Yeah, I think the Knowles family is the one that sent that letter. I don't know. Did they? I saw the letter and there's photos in the letter, but of course they're not very high quality because they're embedded in the letter. But did they send separate photos?
I don't know. I can search through my old emails and see if I have it digitally.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If there's some nice old photo we can include, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I'd love to get that up on social media too.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll take a look for that. I know we have it. It's the paper copy, I believe, that is in the. I don't even know if they're still there. It was in the file cabinets at the town hall.
Great. All right, I'm gonna stop.
Are those cabinets still there?
Yeah, the cabinets are still there, and we have keys for them.
You just gotta keep trying which key.
Yeah, that was the challenge. But we do have access to them. Sue has the keys, so. Oh no, you gave them back to Wendy.
Wendy has the keys, and they had to drill one out.
Okay.
And I have the gray container, the giant gray container. Who knows what is at the bottom of that container?
Oh, you mean of things to be filed?
Yeah.
Steph, hopefully we'll be able to get caught up with that. So it sounds like where we are with this is Melissa's gonna help editing. We're gonna do some fine touches on possible dog regulations out there. Just clarify maybe what is allowed and what isn't, because I think that could answer the question if that's an area that's set aside as designated for off-leash dogs, then we want to respect that. But if not, I think we could stay with the current recommendation.
I just saw October 12th, 2017 minutes of Conservation Commission where Jeff is talking about that with Quacks and a few other people. There was quite a dialogue in minutes of October 12th in 2017. And I don't see anything in between that. I don't find the ordinance, but I did find discussion there.
I did just pull up the ordinance actually. Dogs are permitted off leash. So it's section 430, article. It's chapter 4, article 2, section 430. And it says they're permitted on leash at these specific spots, and then permitted off leash at these specific spots. A bunch are Leda Lane, Pembroke Drive, Route 150 River. That might be Piscassic Loisel. Wadley Falls, Route 152. I'm not sure. The Fisk parcel on Grant Road, which I believe is.
That's Wigan Farm.
Yeah, it's Wigan Farm. So there's 3 parcels listed for Grapevine Hill, Fisk parcel, Grant Road.
I'm wondering if we could ask for the pricing from the Portsmouth people. Say there's X number of signs right now, one more pending, so we bundle the best number of signs together to get the best price possible. But I think it could be interesting, given we know so much more now, or we like to be so much more conscientious about everything from various bird mating seasons to, like Patrick said, more and more people using the conservation properties. We want to promote more and more about the outdoors. It might be interesting, or I'd be interested in having us revisit where are dogs even allowed off leash now, given that things and tones and temperaments are so different than a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't think dogs off leash are compatible with William Farm personally. So.
Well, I agree, because I think there's even in the board that we have, the large board out there, I thought did reference the fact that because of the ground birds, we asked that people not have dogs off leash at least in the springtime. So I think it's not unreasonable that we've already sort of introduced that we might say at this point it's just not compatible to have people with dogs off leash, but we might also need to touch base with the town council on that. It sounds like if it's a actual ordinance.
Well, that's what I mean. I think we should pursue, what do you call it? Revoking an ordinance or modifying an ordinance or erasing an ordinance or, I mean, we have so darn many ordinances. I would be a proponent of just going in and hacking out a bunch of them, but I'm pretty radical about fewer ordinances maybe.
All right.
Okay, so that was Melissa Sharples said that you wanted to help, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think
I
we
do-
should just continue on with the rewriting of, or the editing of the signs. We'll look into the dog issue. So we're not really ready to make a motion on appropriating $1,000 or up to $1,000, or does it make sense to go ahead and do that? Would that give you a head start on this, Ellen, if we did that?
Yeah, I think we can, because these are individual signs, we're not like making 10 of the exact same sign. I don't think there's any cost. So we can say we're going to do 12 and she'll give me and we just do 10 now and the other 2 later. It'll be totally fine. They're pretty low.
Okay.
Then we could get going on some of them. Like if Melissa and I agree on 6 or 8, we can get those going and whoever else wants to look at them.
Okay, well then I will make a motion that we appropriate up to $1,000 to spend on redoing the signs at Wigan Farm. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Oh, sorry.
Great, thanks.
all right.
Is that everybody? Okay, unanimous.
Let's go on to the treasurer's report.
Okay. Yep.
You're gonna
Okay.
share that, Ellen, or do you want me to share that?
You can share if you want. I don't have that up on my
Okay.
ability to do that right now. So I think you got the copy from it was forwarded. So the general fund balance, which is the 2,000 some we get, the balance is $648.42. The total conservation fund balance is $170,812.58. So the $75,000 to the Clark easement came out from since last meeting. $170,000. And no other income except for the interest that we get, which is part of that balance. I know the town received the check from Fish and Game for $3,150, which is the Habitat small grant that we got, but it didn't get into this month. It's April's month, so it'll probably show up on the May balance sheet. And I think that's it.
Okay. Great. Yes, that's a good point about the Clark easement. That's finally completely closed at this point. So that's why the funds have come out. So congratulations to Southeast Land Trust on helping us get that completed. That is done. So good work on that. I think it might be, hopefully we might be able to, I know I've talked to Selt about this, is that hopefully at some point we'll be able to have something where we do some kind of recognition, whether it's at Clark Farm or, you know, invite the Clarks to a meeting or something like that. I would like to see them recognized for what they're doing because it's a piece of property that they're conserving, and it's great. Okay, Riverfront Committee, Riverfront Advisory Committee. I always forget how to title you guys, Sam.
I don't know if we have an official title yet. I still keep writing it different on every page that I put together myself. Let's see, since our last meeting, we met, I believe, April 20th. We were also supposed to meet this Tuesday due to technical issues. We did not, and we'll be meeting next Tuesday. I guess in a nutshell, I'm not quite sure what I had mentioned back in April at our last meeting. but we are still kind of moving forward with the consideration that a first step in this process will be trying to pursue a grant through DES. That grant theoretically will be out this month and due in July. So there's some work on the committee's angle to kind of start laying the groundwork for that. I believe we are going to draft an RFQ, and if we have support from the town and the town council, put that RFQ out to try to get architectural or engineering assistance to start kind of developing conceptual plans of riverfront areas, Riverwalk extension, Shanda Park, like living shoreline or resiliency aspect, and potentially the pedestrian bridge as well. So that's kind of the short-term focus, is just trying to seek grant funding to kind of kick off starting to make conceptual images of the area that people can start kind of reviewing and thinking about and offering input on. So that's sort of where we're at right now, and that's sort of the focus for the next month or two.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
Oh, can I ask a question, Sam, quick?
Sure.
Is that for a pedestrian bridge across the river?
That's the thought.
The thought? That was brought to us many times. Yes, there's a specific individual in town who's quite interested in that.
Yeah,
it's a
awesome.
fantastic idea. What's that?
No, I just said it's awesome. Could you picture it?
Yeah, it's quite expensive. I believe we kind of got a couple of prices, maybe kind of like on the side back then about it, and it was a little pricey. But there are so many other options that I think would be great there. We also looked into that. We had the town engineer actually come out and give us advice on fixing the retaining walls and everything. That they were Underwood engineers came out and they kind of walked with us and kind of looked at it, but didn't get anywhere.
Well, instead of buy a brick fundraiser, we could have buy a plank. So you buy a plank to get the bridge built.
Yeah, I had been in Maryland at my aunt's house, and I saw these massive, long boardwalks on the water, and with like just raised portions that small fishing boats were going on there and everything like that. And it's like literally just like almost like a pier kind of, basically. It wasn't some elaborate crazy bridge. It's literally just like a dock essentially with handrails. And it didn't seem like that was going to cost $100,000.
Yeah, it's two docks that just meet in the middle. That's all.
Exactly. Need a dock permit from the state.
Yeah.
Well, they said that the state of New Hampshire is going to get $1.5 billion that they have to figure out how to spend. So the town can get some portion of that. Well, thanks, Sam. I appreciate. Yeah, Jeff, just to kind of update you, that's the point of what Sam's committee is working on. So they've got a variety of people to try and move that forward. We know Shanda Park is in need of revitalization, but also just incorporating it into a broader plan for the riverfront, because we do have ideas about creating more trails and things like that down there. So
yeah, excellent. I think it's a fantastic idea to have pedestrian access directly to Heron Point from town.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've missed anything, but I will always ask, is there any other items that anyone else wanted to bring up?
I have two.
Okay.
Just real quick, I wanted to remind, or just to let people know, that our June meeting guest will be talking about, name is to be determined, but the topic is nighttime pollinators and what we can do as homeowners to help the moths. Butterflies have great PR, guys, and the moths need some more PR about what they're doing to help pollinate plants. So the topic will be nighttime and what you can do as a homeowner to minimize light, and touch a little bit on some of those efforts and some of the, I always try and say it in a positive way, but there's deleterious effects that nighttime light has on bats, for instance, being able to go out and forage for all the mosquitoes they eat. And there's also some effects on let alone migration. So anyway, our topic for June is nighttime landscape lighting or home lighting. And I also wanted to bring up, I think this is okay to bring up now, if we could circle around back to Matt Tarr. He had been a guest in the winter. I want to say he was a guest in February, but he had offered, and we had all nodded excitedly, that he would come back sometime in the summer and lead a walkabout on a property. And I think it would be great if we could pick a date in June, or if we could decide if we really want to have that happen, he could come back and be a feature. We could have a mini event. The UNH is allowed now to deploy their people, and they can be in small groups. So I would be interested to see if we're interested in getting back to Matt Tarr to lead a group and have a talk about a property. But I think June would be a great month to do it.
Yeah, I think Wigan Farm, because he can talk about field management, we might want to get his ideas about that. So Wigan Farm would be a good spot.
Yeah, and it focuses our interest on Wigan Farm. Since we've just had the grant, we've just had the Bronto work, we're getting these signs. That could be really interesting to focus on Wigan. Not to mention parking there is so darn easy to get a group together, to go on a walk there. So the logistics for Wigan, I think, really kind of shout.
Yeah, that would be fine, Chris. If you want to throw, or are you going to reach out to Matt and ask him what dates would be good for him in June? Or do you want?
I think between Ellen and I, we can get Matt. She knows him very well as well. I have a working relationship with him, and she has worked with him for a long time. So between the two of us, we should probably find out what dates he can do, since his schedule might be determined in a minimal way with summer programs or monitoring grad students. So probably, Ellen, do you think you could get a hold of him and see what he suggests for dates, and then we could do it? Could we do it by email maybe? And book him a date? Or does anybody here have a time they know they can't do?
Well, I don't know if this is something that Matt would be willing to do, but one thing that's nice about June is that because those are some of the longest days of the year, if we could do it on a weekday in the afternoon, evening, that would be nice.
It sure would.
I just don't know if that's reasonable to ask of him to do it on a weeknight.
Well, no is always an acceptable answer. So yeah. I would think a late afternoon would be a really great time, or an evening would be a really great time. It'll be out in the evening, and it's a benefit of our northern latitudes.
Yep. So.
I think he'd prefer that over a weekend, so I bet that would work out well.
Okay, good. Well, let's see what he says. All right. Well, thanks, Chris, for circling
There's no
back.
time here that we would not want to do it, though, right?
I know I won't
be only on the date that Kevin's speaking, right? We don't want to conflict with that.
All right. So take out June 2nd. Yeah.
Take out June 2nd.
Take out our own regular meeting.
Yep. So sometime maybe the third week of July or June. So right close to summer. So
Melissa Sharples was about to say a date or something. I'm sorry, Melissa. What were you about to say?
Toss out that I would not be available on the 10th and 11th, so I would hope that maybe the week after.
Same for me. So that sounds
okay.
Okay.
But then can we, once we get that date, or can we do it by running it by you, and we could just go ahead and book him for a certain date?
Yeah, I think we can just go ahead and book it. I mean, I don't think that's we're not expending anything. He's not going to charge us to do this. He'll do it for gratis, right, as part of his UNH work. So
right.
I think the biggest thing would just promote it, and Melissa can do that through Facebook. So put it in the town newsletter if we have time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So just not the 10th or not the 11th or 12th or 10th or 11th.
Right.
10th and 11th.
10 and 11. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I think it's great to fully circle around since he offered after having been a guest.
Okay. So before we adjourn, I want to take one special moment to do a deep recognition and a big thanks to Melissa Brogel for her work on the roadside cleanup in April.
Woohoo!
I can't tell you how many people participated. This was a tremendous success and just great to see. I mean, all this, I don't know how many, someone was asking us to quantify how much garbage was removed, and I really don't know. I couldn't begin to tell you because it seemed like a lot, though. More than
It was
50
a lot.
bags.
Thank you. It was fun. I had a lot of fun organizing that.
It was great. I think that really well, and I just was so excited about it. And yeah, we picked up a lot of garbage. So
We did, and the streets that I've noticed in the past that tend to be very dirty are still fairly clean. So that's
Yep.
always nice to see.
Melissa, did you see Bill from Iron Goat? They posted on their Facebook page, and he revealed the truck full of big, heavy things and kept thanking you throughout the entire thing. I was trying to figure out, can you grab that and put it on our own?
I think I did share it.
Okay.
I think I did right when he posted it, because he texted me and told me that he was posting it. But they were awesome. I mean, he stepped up. I think the first time I made a post on social media, and that worked out really well. So I'm hoping we can do that again in future years. And I'm still working on updating the map. Not everybody who signed up shared pictures or stats. You know, some people just don't like to do that. You know, they just want to sign up and go clean up trash and go home, which is still really awesome. But I have some street names from Tony from her cleanup. So I want to add those to the map, maybe in a different color, and, you know, add the pictures that get that back out there. April tends to be a very busy month for me at work, so it was a little April and beginning of May, so I haven't done that yet, but I want to do that soon.
right. Well, that's a good place to adjourn. So I'll make a motion that we adjourn at 8:53. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chris, thank you. All in favor?
Hi.
Bye.
Aye. Have a good night.
Good night.
Nice to see you, Jeff.
Nice to see you all as well. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.